In this video, we're going to take a look at Lizzy's inventory analysis control, and to get there, we're going to go to the inventory section, select management, and then inventory analysis. When you open this control, if you've never run the process before, you won't see this button over here. If you have run the report before, you can actually open it as many times as you want to until you run it again. So the system will actually remember the user that ran the report and who they ran it for, and allow you to open it as many times as you want without having to go back and rerun it. In this example, what we're going to do is actually go in. Before we can run the report, we have to give it some parameters to run against. So we're going to go through what all of those parameters are and how to use them. Now, the first thing that we have to do is we've got to select a month or quarter or the entire year. If we select a quarter, it'll automatically highlight our month for us, or we can just run for a single month if we want to. Now, there's a couple things to note about this. First of all, you do have to select a month, at least 1 month to run against. And also, if that month has not already expired, in other words, if I'm running this for January, February, and March, and currently it's January the 4th of 2013, Lizzy's going to look and say, well, I can't analyze inventory for 2013, so I'm going to fall back and analyze it from 2011 to 2012. So the system will automatically fall back for you. So you need to keep that in mind. If it's, I'm halfway through March and I go run this particular analysis, it's still going to fall back and only look at 2011 and 12 because we haven't passed March yet. So the other thing is that we have to select at least one manufacturer. Now, if you select more than one manufacturer, and to do that, if I select on a manufacturer and hold on Windows, hold the control key down. On Mac, which is what I'm using here, I'm going to actually hold the command key down. And I can select as many of these things as I want to run against. Now, if I do that, Lizzy is going to schedule that job in the background, and we're going to have to come back in a few minutes to look at it. It usually doesn't take more than 1 or 2 minutes for it to finish. But if I select only one vendor, it will run instantly and give me the results immediately. So just keep that in mind. Now, in this case, I've selected 3 of these vendors. If I select just one without holding the control or the command key down, it'll unhighlight the ones that we wanted. Now, for this example, I'm going to come down here and run against KTM. Now, some of the other options that we have available here, we can tell the system that we only want to run this if I have sold more than one item. So if I haven't sold more than one item in the period of time that it's looking at, I don't even want to see it at this particular point in time. Now, I'm going to leave that set for right now, but I want to mention that in the event that you do choose to do this, you need to understand that it is possible that you're going to miss out on some items that currently have a min-max value, but that value should change. So in other words, if I had a min set to 2 and a max to 5, and I haven't sold this part in the last 2 years, in theory, those 2 min-maxes ought to go to 0. And if I tell the system only to look at the items I've sold, I'm going to lose that, and they'll stay at 2 and 5. So it's a good idea probably to at least every now and then to run this with no quantity set here, just to see what is out there that might need to be changed. Now, other things that we can do is inside of the inventory, when we go and locate an item, we can actually tag. There's a checkbox there to tag the item as a tagged item. When we do that, we're basically saying that these are important items that I would like to kind of keep a handle on, that are a little more important than just the daily things, and I want to run my report only against those items. We can also tell it that we only want to include items where the minimum value is currently set to 0. I only want to include items where there is no sales history for the part. Or the last option is I only want to show items that are based on a minimum value. And if I choose this option, I actually get 2 other options to choose from, whether I want to only select items that are at or below the minimum, or only items that are at or below the minimum. Now I'm going to leave that option unchecked. So right now we're running this for KTM for the first quarter, and we're looking at all the items that we've actually sold more than one item on. And I'm just going to tell it to generate the suggestions. Now, when it finishes, it's going to put me back on this control, and I can select the button here. You'll see this button show up, letting me select it to open up my results. Now, if you do not see this button, which you won't if you selected more than one vendor, then you'll have to come back in a few minutes and look again. But as soon as this button shows up, you'll be able to go ahead and look at your results. And again, it is keeping those results open for the current user that ran it. So right now, I've run this report, and I can come back a week from now and open up the report that I ran today, as long as I don't go in and schedule another job to run. Now, on here, I have the ability to export this list to a CSV file. I can post these to a seasonal PO if I want to. We can uncheck all of the post to PO buttons. You'll notice the items that Lizzy says need to be ordered, it automatically has checked. Now, in the event that I don't want to order anything, I'm only wanting to set my min-max values, I can tell it to uncheck all of those PO buttons, and then when I click this button here, it's only going to go through and update my min-max values. It's not going to order anything. Now, taking a look at the actual results, there's a few things that you need to understand. The first thing is, if you see these white items, these are items that Lizzy has no recommendations whatsoever to do for you. She's not telling you to order it. She's not telling you to set the min-max value on it. She's just basically saying, leave it alone, don't worry about it. And these actually alternate between the gray and white when you're looking through the grid. Now, if you look right here, we've got some explanations of what you're looking at. So you can see that what green means, yellow means, and orange means. And I'm going to explain that as we go through. And then you can also see that if you see some of these items that have, like this one has a quantity 37 sold, but it was sold on 40 invoices, that's kind of letting me know that there were some refunds out there that affected what this value actually ended up being. So just keep in mind, if you see this, it's not wrong. It's just there's some refunds that are affecting the quantity sold number. So how do we read this report, and what are we going to use it for? Well, the first thing is that if I see an orange line item, that lets me know that I have only sold that item for 1 year. There's no trending data available on that particular item for Lizzy to be able to tell me what we should really do. So she tries to just base it off of a 1 year of sale and only look at the data from that point. So right now, Lizzy is looking at this, and she says that we sold 4 over the last year, or in 2012, we sold 4. We sold them on 4 different invoices. So it could have been 4 different customers, might have been the same customer in 4 different situations, but we know that we sold it over 4 different invoices. We also know how many parts we have on hand, how many we have on order, the last date that we actually sold that item. Again, you have to keep in mind that we only ran it for the first quarter, so this last date sold is based on that first quarter of sales. So if I run it for the second quarter, this date may change because I sold it, the last date sold in the second quarter may have been April. Now, we have a minimum and a maximum value that the current system is set to. So right now, this part is set to 5 and 10. And you can see that we've only sold 4 of these over the whole the first quarter of last year. So 5 and 10 really doesn't make sense. A minimum of 5 when I really only sold 4 parts doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, Lizzy is actually suggesting that we change those numbers to 1 and 3. And so Lizzy has automatically filled in on those particular items, 1 and 3. And because we currently have a value of 0, Lizzy's recommending that we order 3 of these. So the maximum value is set to 3, and she's recommending that we order 3 of them because of the fact that we don't have any here to work with. Now, the number over here on the right gives us the total cost to order that part if we have a cost in the inventory section. So it gives you an idea what it's going to cost if you place that order. And you have the ability to override any of the numbers that Lizzy shows you. Now, the next item that we see here is a green item, and that lets me know immediately that that is an uptrending part. In other words, in 2000, well, there's 2 things. First of all, the green and the yellow means that we had 2 years of data to look at. So I immediately know that I'm looking at 2011, 2012, and that the difference between the 2 years was an uptrend, which means I sold more of these items in 2012 than we did in 2011. So that's the first key point to note here. The second thing is that because there's an uptrend, Lizzy is going to calculate a ratio of that trend. And she's going to try to calculate your min-max based on that ratio. Now, there is a cap on the ratio. Currently, Lizzy has a cap of a 25% uptick. So if the system sees that you sold 100% more parts on that particular part, she's going to cap it at 25% to make sure that we don't go completely haywire and order too many parts. It's always better to err on the safe side than to order too many parts and then we can't sell them. So there is a 25% cap right now, and we can adjust that if we need to, and we may actually make an option for it. Right now, it's a hard-coded option or a hard-coded feature in the analysis routines. Now, the other thing to look at here is that we have a recommendation of 9 and 36. Now, in settings, there is a setting in the inventory section for telling Lizzy what your minimum should be based on. Right now, it's 25% of whatever the maximum gets set to. So you have the ability to tell Lizzy what you want that minimum to be set to based on what the maximum is. Now, in this particular case, based on the number of parts we have in stock and on order, Lizzy's recommending that we order 13 of these to get us up to our maximum value. And you can see in the last 2 years, we sold 40 of these items, and we were actually on an uptick we sold more in 2012 than we did 2011. So all of that stuff is brought into consideration when Lizzy comes up with what these recommendations are. And again, you can modify these values before you actually update the min-max or update the order quantities. So the other thing to look at here is we have a yellow line item. This item actually has a down trend. So this particular part, we sold less in 2012 than we did in 2011. So Lizzy is recommending an adjustment here based on that. Now, right now we have a 1 in 4 that is set on the min-max, which kind of lets me know that that part probably hasn't been adjusted in a while. But in any case, I may want to leave it at that, or I may want to go ahead and tell it to change the min-maxes. Now, if I want to leave it alone, all I got to do is uncheck that checkbox, and Lizzy won't update that particular min-max. Or maybe I want to leave it alone. Now, even though there is a downtrend, you can see that we sold 105 of these items over the last 2 years. So it is a fairly fast-moving part, and I probably don't want to only stock 4. Right now, we've got 31 of them in stock, so I probably want to leave this set to what it's showing. Again, there's a lot of things coming into play here that Lizzy's using. All of them are not visible on this control because we're trying to keep the control as simple as we can, but you have the information to see that Lizzy is trying to make some educated decisions for you to set your min-max values and your order quantities for you on each of the particular items. So I would highly recommend that you use this control if you're not already using it. The current version that will be getting released this Sunday, which is January 7th, is actually going to include all of this color coding. The previous version didn't have this stuff in it. So go in, play with it. If you happen to run across items that don't make sense to you, open a ticket up and ask us to explain what it is. There could be scenarios that play out that we haven't considered, and we need to go in and tweak the algorithms and stuff to make it more accurate. We've tested quite a bit of stuff, and we're pretty comfortable that this thing is doing exactly what it needs to do. But always keep your eye out for strangeness going on so that we can go in and review it. So again, this is an inventory management, inventory analysis, and I hope that most of you will go in and start using it and find some huge advantages to letting Lizzy help you with your min-max values.